Are we back? I believe we are back. Welcome, everybody, to the return this season of The Talk with AVC. I am your host, AVC. We are back on the Iona College campus in the WICR La Penta booth. Thank God. Um, it has been a little while from the storm to the pandemic delays to scheduling stuff. Thanks, Danny. We are finally back. So, and we have a lot to catch up on. So let's start with, oh dear God. Yep. Let's start with the Yankees. Okay. How best to describe? I can't hear a thing with these headphones. Danny said I'm on air, so that's good enough for me. If it doesn't work, then I'll yell at him. Oh, the Yankees. You know, I'd hope the shows would be up and running a little sooner so I could roast that corpse while it was still kind of breathing. But at this point, it's been about what, 2 weeks now, I think, since the wild card loss to the Red Sox. Oh, I've been waiting to do this. And I was going to do it originally in a separate YouTube video back in August, I think. Yeah, back in August or July, I was going to do this. But then they pulled that massive win streak out of nowhere and rolled into the playoffs. And, they gave me hope again, and then they let me down with the issues that I knew were already there. So, what am I going to do right now? Well, I've got a list of certain things in the Yankees organization that I want to complain about, as the fan I am. I'm going to say basically what's wrong with the Yankees, and then actually, I'm going to give my take this offseason on how best to fix the Yankees. All right. So let's briefly talk about the wild card game itself. There's not much to talk about. Cole didn't have his stuff. Stanton got robbed of 2 home runs by the Green Monster. And 0 walks. When you walk 0 times and strike out more than like 8 times, and you walk the other team more than 7 times, you're not going to win baseball games. That's not how it works. So, I mean, there's not much to talk about. That game was just clearly it was just a bad game. Cole didn't have his stuff. Stanton alone was not enough to carry this roster past Boston again. Okay. Now let's get into the list of people. Hey, let's stick with the wild card game. Let's have some fun here. Let's start with Phil Nevin. Oh, Phil. I was happy when you came back from your whole medical condition. But by God, man, you've been a third base coach how long with the Yankees, and you still don't know what the heck you're doing. A-Rod was able to take the moral high ground on you and call you out on national television, and you were completely in the wrong. When A-Rod is calling you out on ESPN, that's a problem. All right, listen. Yes, the whole whiff with the Stanton hitting it to the wall, sending Judge for no reason is just bad. But any Yankee fan can attest, there's been times way before this, whether it's holding guys up when they should be scoring, sending guys when they have, like Gary Sanchez for some reason when they have no business. For a while, I literally thought he was sending Gary Sanchez to see if he could get injured. I literally thought that was the reason for a while because it made no sense why he sent him home so much. It was ludicrous. All right, so enough wasted on a third base coach. Should he be fired? Yes. Okay. Garrett Cole. Oh boy. The $324 million man, I believe. Is that what it is? Something like that. $324 million arm. Cole is a double-bladed, is like a two-way thing for me. On one hand, the Yankees don't make the playoffs this year without Cole. Without Cole pitching the way he had for most of the year, the Yankees don't make the playoffs. Plain and simple. They won about probably 6 games this year, maybe more, simply because Cole started the game. And that's just a fact. But my guy, this whole thing of you showing up in big games like this, don't let this become a trend. Don't let this become a trend, my guy. Redeem yourself next year. You're gonna get another shot. Don't worry. You're still the ace of the staff. You're still the best pitcher in the AL, probably. But God, did you look terrible? You still haven't figured out. He's been in the league for how many years now, and he still hasn't figured out that losing his cool causes him to collapse like crazy. Like that's Cole's problem. He gets frustrated. He loses his stuff. He doesn't have his control. He loses his stuff. That's how he is. He needs control and calm in order to do that. That's why you ever watch Garrett Cole in the dugout. He looks like a robot. That's how he is. He needs to just stay completely focused in order to actually make anything he does stick. Poor choice of words given everything that's gone on this year, but I think we know what I mean. Oh, dear God, heaven on earth, Gary Sanchez, get this man out of New York. Like, it's time. I'm done with him. You know, for all the people who say, well, we can't have it. Look at all these other catchers. They don't hit either. Yeah, but the other catchers that don't hit can play defense. Gary can't play defense. We must have lost about 5 to 6 games this year because of muffs behind home plate from this guy. How many times are we going to see this guy strike out on 3 pitches? How many times are we going to send him to the IL for massive stints only for him to come back really cold and have to regain any of his footing? How many times are we going to see a 1-month hot streak where everybody's sold that he's a top 5 catcher, all-star in baseball, and then collapse again? He's not a catcher. He's a terrible defensive catcher. He has 1 year of arbitration. Cut him loose now. Seriously, cut him loose now. He's not worth trading. You're not going to get anything for him at this point. Unless you trade him to some rebuilding team. And again, they'll take him. But what are you going to get? A low-level A-ball prospect? Just set him loose. Free up the roster spot. There's literally nothing else he can provide for you. He just needs to go. Gary Sanchez, just bye. Gone. Oh, another guy who might need to go, and this one makes me sad. Luke Voit. I love Luke Voit. He's a guy that I would want to play baseball with. Like, the dude just looks like he's having so much fun. He's kind of a Yankee legend at this point. But I think the team needs to move on from him. Why do they need to move on from him? Main reason is health with him. He just can't stay healthy. There's another factor, too. People seem to forget because he's so new to the team in comparison, because he was newer to the team, he's not a young man. Luke Voit is not a young guy when it comes to baseball players. Luke Voit, I think, is entering his age 30 season this year, something along those lines. I'd have to check. But the point is, he's on the older side of call-ups. He's been in the minors for a while before he came up, obviously with the trade with the Cardinals. Yeah, Luke Voit is 30. He turns 31 this offseason. He turns 31 this offseason. As he continues to get older, his health problems are only, in terms of staying healthy, are only going to get worse. They don't get better. Evidence over the years has shown that for most players. You should have. I was on the wagon. Everybody heard me. I've said it on this show. They should have traded them last offseason after the shortened year. Why? Well, mainly due to the fact that he had the best season of his career and his value was never going to be any higher. And power hitting first baseman, Luke Voit, can have terrible regressions. I mean, look at Anthony Rizzo. Yeah, Anthony Rizzo did solid this year for the Yankees, but that's nowhere near what he used to be. Look at the regression he's had since his primes in Chicago. That's what happens. First basemen are very they have very short peaks. They have great peaks, but they're very short. Look at Chris Davis. They have these great peaks where they look like some of the best players in baseball, and then suddenly you turn around and it's done. They're gone. Now they're strikeout machines. And that's the issue with Luke Voit. He keeps getting injured, and then he keeps having to regain form. And every time he does, it just kind of sets the lineup back, and you don't need that. And again, you can find other people in this position. You have infield pieces, except for at shortstop. We'll get to that in a minute. But I think the move is to let you could probably get something for Voit. You could try to trade Voit. Then again, seeing as how you couldn't get it done at the deadline, I don't know, but you could try. You could try to get a deal done for Voit in terms of trading him, or you could simply let him go. He does have 3 years of control left, so that would be appealing to some teams. But I just don't see it, you know? It's just not there for him. It's time to move on. Oh boy, next person on the list, Chad Green. People have asked me sometimes why I hate on this guy so much. Have you seen this man against quality opponents? Have you seen Chad Green against good teams? Watch him versus Houston and Boston. He gets shelled. You want to know why? It's because his stuff isn't that good. He doesn't have any elite stuff. He has a decent fastball, which he has good control on. He has an okay curveball, which is meh. He has a decent changeup and another fastball, I believe, that he throws. Nothing he throws is electric. Nothing he throws is great. And that's fine. That's fine for a middle reliever. But if that's your eighth inning guy, you are putting yourselves in bad situations. Green should not be the guy that you put in, no questions asked. He's going to get you out of this jam. And that's what they used him as this year. And they consider to use him as the closer. And that's just not what he is. He's a seventh inning guy. Let him be that. Let him be a middle reliever. Let him be a seventh or eighth inning guy in lower pressure games. Because that's what he is. Let him do that. Let him do that. He's also got 1 year of arbitration left before he's a free agent. Honestly, when he's a free agent, somebody's going to overpay him. So let him go when that time comes. I'm not saying let him go this offseason. You bring him back, obviously, the bullpen. Don't touch the bullpen. The bullpen was phenomenal. Joey Gallo. Oh, dear God. You know, I was excited when we traded for you. And a lot of people warned me. Saying, you know, he's too similar to Stanton and Giancarlo. No. This man ain't similar to Giancarlo and Stanton. He's what people seem to think they are. And that's the problem. You know, Joey, you have one of the highest OBPs in baseball, but you strike out so much, it's insane. The actual issue with Gallo is actually less so much the strikeouts. It's what the strikeouts show. And what the strikeouts show is that, honestly, for a guy with his power and his pop, he has trouble putting the ball in play. That's the issue. The guy actually has problems putting the ball in play. The only time when he makes solid contact with the ball, look, it's a moonshot home run. But he can't make contact otherwise. It's terrible. That's why, in terms of like singles and doubles and triple, he's like near the bottom. He walks a ton, but people just realize they can paint the corners with him. He won't swing. And a Gold Glove outfielder, I mean, this part's partially on Boone, but you put him in left field where he had the least amount of experience. You could have put him in center and he would have had more experience there as a Gold Glover. Look, he's got 1 year of team control left. They're obviously not going to get rid of him, even though, in my opinion, you probably should. If you have to stick it out with him for 1 more year, fine. But this guy needs to go. He's good. God, he needs to go. And don't even think about extending him. Don't even think about extending him. All right, we're getting to the end of the list here, boys. I promise. I know this video is going on for a while, but you know, it's my first time back, and I am excited, and I'm just going to keep talking. Oh, Gleyber Torres. You know, I've defended you quite a bit, to be honest. And, oh, boy. There's a simple solution here. He's just not a shortstop. That's just very clear. He's not a shortstop. The guy is a butcher at defense, specifically at short. Play him at second. Let his bat come back. He'll be fine. Honestly, he's cold because he was injured for so much and he was off the roster for a while. Let him get reacquainted with the roster and he'll be fine. Oh, there's 2 more players I want to bash real quick. Andrew Heaney. Why? Jude, this move never made sense to me from the deadline, and it never made sense to me why they kept using him. It was bad. It was really, 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 really bad. This guy single-handedly cost us like 3 games, I think. This guy just... They finally DFA'd him. Don't bring him back. Release him. Get him off this roster. It's just go. Bye. Gone. Go regrow your goatee. Bye. I don't want anything with him. And this brings us to the least favorite player that the Yankees have. And you may be wondering when I say this person's name, why am I going after him? He didn't even play for most of the year. That man is Aaron Hicks. You know why I have a problem with Aaron Hicks? This man is the ultimate excuse machine for Cashman. It's hilarious. He's the ultimate excuse machine. We don't need an outfielder. We have him coming back. He's just hurt right now. We don't need to add lefty bats to the lineup. We have him as a switch hitter. He'll be back right now. He can't hit from the left side. Cashman, what are you watching? And you gave him this massive extension for the actual monetary in terms of the per year is not the issue. It's the length. How do you give this man an 8-year contract? That was ludicrous at the time. It looks even worse now. If you could dump him for a bag of chips this offseason, please do. This guy's only gotten worse. He can't hit from the left side anymore. That's just gone. He can't play center field anymore either. People are wondering, like, well, why can't he play center field? Have you seen in the last few times he's been back? Spoiler alert. He had Tommy John and it messed up his arm. The best part of his defensive game was his arm. And if his arm is shot, he's not a center fielder anymore. He could only play center field because of his arm. He didn't have the speed or range, particularly, to be a good center fielder. But he had the arm to make up for it. Now his arm's gone. So great. He's a corner outfielder making that kind of money. Just, no. Get him out. Get him gone. And now let's go to the last two people in this. I'll start with Aaron Boone. I'm not going to waste too much time on this because I'm not really sure how much of this is really on him in terms of some of the roster stuff. Let's just throw it out there. Boone's not a good manager. He doesn't reward players for playing well. He rests players on hot streaks. He gives more players playing time when they're on cold streaks. He doesn't know how to manage a bullpen. He's seemingly not much of a motivator, and he's an easy martyr for this season. I really hope management doesn't think that just by letting him go that they can get that's all that needed to be done. There's a lot of upheaval that needs to be done with this organization and this roster, but it's a start. It needs to be done. His contract has expired. Just don't bring him back. I'm honestly not going to give my thoughts on who should replace him. Manager in baseball is weird. It's not like coaches in the NFL or college or basketball or anything like that. Manager is a lot more about chemistry and locker room feel and experience. It's weird. I would prefer an experienced manager, but I could see them giving another young guy a shot. Just careful with Buck Showalter. No. Please no. And then this brings us to the guy who I've been on since about July that something needs to change on this end. The man I'm most upset with for this season is Brian Cashman. Cash, you have, I believe, 3 World Series titles. You have some clout, don't get me wrong. You probably know way more about baseball than I ever will. Let me tell you what I've learned in my short time that I can look at. You've lost your touch. Plain and simple, you've lost your touch. You've lost your touch. I mean, how best to describe this? All right, let me put it to you this way. You know what my main issue is with Cashman? Player development. And I know that's probably not what you're thinking, but hear me out on this. Most of the issues people have about the Yankees are because their young depth never actually either elevated or kept getting injured. Or they never capitalized on trading the young depth for bigger pieces. Why? Cashman. Cashman overvalued prospects who have lost their value because of crappy development. 2 years ago, Clint Frazier should have been playing every day in the major leagues. There was nothing more he could develop in the minors. Should have traded him then. Miguel Andujar, same thing. He's not going to get any better by playing in the minors. He needs to be in the majors. And you knew he was never going to be a starter on this team. You knew that was the case, but you held on to him for no reason. And then you're wondering, well, why can't we? Back when you tried to trade for Garrett Cole from the Pirates, Why can't we get them for these two prospects? Because they're not worth anything. But you continually tout them as these amazing things. You were a little better this season, I'll be honest, with some of your trades. You traded mid-level prospects for decent additions outside of Joey Gallo's performance. But seriously, let me ask this question too. Name a player since the 09 championship, a prospect, that has been developed to their peak potential in this era. Seriously, name me one. Hard to find one, right? The closest would probably be Aaron Judge. And you know what? That's fair. But this isn't basketball where you only need to develop one player. So Aaron Judge. Is there anybody else? Some of you may look at me and say Luis Severino. Okay, fair. He'd need to come back and play another solid year before I could really say that, but yeah, okay. And then some of the mid-level young bullpen guys like Nestor, Loizica, and Green. They haven't reached their full potential. So, no. But they've been solid pieces. Here's the problem, though. The only reason they've been any good was because people in the coaching staff and other avenues of the front office decided to finally make them relievers instead of having them trot out there as starters where they weren't good. So they really didn't develop their full potential. They capitalized on their minimum potential. Cashman, you straddled this line for so long of not wanting to sell the farm and not wanting to go after the big name. You finally broke it a little bit with Cole. Don't get me crap about Stanton. Stanton was handed to you on a platter by a Marlins team looking to cut payroll. You went for the big move with Cole. Great. My issue with Cashman, and a couple issues, I have many issues with Cashman. My main issue with Cashman is his utter lack of ability to understand a team identity. Or maybe he has understood a team identity and his team identity is just awful. It's getting a bunch of unathletic power hitters to play strikeout home run ball. Cash, that doesn't work. Look at the Astros. Look at the Rays. Look at the Red Sox. Look at these teams with smaller payrolls sweeping you throughout the season. I have to maintain my composure here, otherwise I'm going to get kicked off the air. But when you get bested by those teams and you aren't bringing up young guys to replace, this roster is getting old fast. The young guys that came up a few years ago, outside of Torres, Judge is almost 30. Stanton's about to be 30. Cole, I believe, is entering his 30s if he isn't already. Chapman's in his mid-30s. LeMahieu's 32, I think. So you're running out of time here, Cash. This core isn't going to be that good for much longer. You can't just keep throwing big money names at the wall and see if anything works. You need to bring in young depth to help solidify this roster. And you moved on from Girardi because he didn't agree with you or you didn't like how he was managing after being one game away from the World Series. Cat's out of the box. You've never been that close to the World Series again. Since 09, you never made it back. This would get most GMs fired by this point, but not with the Yankees. You know, when you got big market legacy franchises and you have GMs like Cashman, it's very hard to move on from. And I understand why. I do. I understand why. But it would make more sense for a small market team to have a problem moving on from this guy because you don't know if you get that kind of success again. For a big market team, how many quality GMs are out there? How many quality head scouts of teams like Tampa or St. Louis or even Boston or San Diego, you know, teams that have been developing young guys, good scouted mind GMs or guys who are ready to be GMs. How many of them are out there? There's plenty. There's so many good qualified people, I'm sure, that you could bring in and give an opportunity to. An opportunity to give a different vision. This team needs new vision. Now, I do want to look at ownership for a second. It's weird as a Yankee fan to go after ownership because because for the first time ever in my life, they decided to play it cheap. And cheap in a relative sense. They didn't wanna go over the luxury not cheap in the sense like how Bob Nutting, is cheap with the Pirates, more in the sense of how Boston was being cheap when they traded Mookie Betts, that kind of situation. And that worries me a little bit because if ownership's gonna continue to be like that, I worry about Aaron Judge. I don't worry much because I'm 99% sure 99. I'm 99% sure he'll be back, but ownership looking cheap does not help these matters. Where are we at here? All right, 25 minutes. You know what? I could cut here, but you know what? It's just delay the inevitable. You know, if this stream has been too long for you, that's fine. Take a break, come back to it. Because now we're getting into the more optimistic part. This is where I move to what would I do? How would I fix the Yankees? So I looked at the roster, I looked at upcoming free agents, I looked at guys who may be available in trade targets, etc. I looked at all the normal scout work of stuff, prospects who could be on the rise soon, things like that. And here's my best summation of what I would do. I have 5 players who are unmovable. Everybody else could be considered movable. Cole, Stanton, Judge. 2 due to contracts, 1 due to just value. Gio Urshela, oddly enough, he's cheap. He's been so solid for us. LeMahieu, contract, and he'll be fine. Most of his issues this year stemmed from injuries. And the other guys, the other 2 are Severino and Jonathan Loáisiga. I think Loáisiga is our future closer, to be completely honest. I believe he has looked so solid these last 2 years. I'm all aboard the Johnny Lasagna train. This isn't the right exact time to completely reconstruct a roster, which is why I would give Cashman the last year of his contract. He has 1 year left on his current contract. I would give him the last year of this contract. Here's why. You have minimal roster flexibility this year. A lot of big contracts, a lot of guys at their lowest values, not a lot of space because you got guys under team control that you're probably not going to move. So you have minimal roster flexibility of what you can do this year, unless you want to get really nuts, which not yet. Not yet. So, first things first. Either add a veteran starting pitcher to replace the Kluber Tyon hole, or just use these last year team control to re-sign Tyon. That's fine. Either way, otherwise look at guys like Waka, Scherzer, Peralta, stuff like that. Re-up most of the pen. Bring back most of the bullpen guys. Bring back Clay Holmes. Bring back Wendy Peralta. Move Nestor back to the pen. I would say I think he's better in there. You know, he's a good start. He's been a good starter this year. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's better in the pen. More as like a 2-winning guy. And yeah, use some of the young guys to reinforce the pen. The pen's fine. Wait for Chapman. Wait for Britton to come back. You'll be fine. Chapman and Britton are on the last year of their deals, so you don't have to worry much about that. Now we get into the more interesting part. Catcher. As I've stated, I want Gary Sanchez gone. So, who would I want to replace him? We can't just have Kyle Higashioka playing the whole year. I looked at the free agents this year, and some people might say, oh, look, Buster Posey. Yeah, no, Buster Posey ain't leaving San Francisco. So, let's get that out of the way. You're not trading for Salvador Perez, Yankee fans. I know that's what you want. No, look at me. I know that's what you want. Stop it. No. Let me give you the simple explanation here. You have to be able on a World Series team to sacrifice at least 2 spots to have quality defensive players, maybe even 3. But that doesn't mean you can't have a catcher with some pop. So the catcher I would want to bring in on probably a 2 to 3 year deal is Yan Gomes. We don't know who Yan Gomes is. He's been a starter and rotational catcher on Oakland, Washington, and Cleveland. He's a good catcher, and he's one of the better hitting catchers in the league. But he's much better defensively than Gary Sanchez is. And he's had some good numbers over his career, honestly. He's batted 276 before, and as a catcher, that's pretty good. So bring in Young Guns. That should fill your catcher's role really nicely, and you won't be worrying about Gary Sanchez ever again. Please, for the love of God, do that. Okay, next step. Move LeMahieu to first base. Trade Voit. Or let go of Voit. LeMahieu is getting older. We saw injuries start to happen to him this year. In an effort to preserve his body, I think it would be best to move him to first base. That allows you to put Gio back at third, Glaber at second, and go acquire a shortstop. I know DJ is a great second baseman, and he is. He's a great second baseman. He's a good third baseman, too. But his main value comes from his bat. You need his bat. He was desperately missed in that wild card game against Boston. His bat balances out your whole lineup. You need him. So you need to preserve him. Move him to first base. Let him play there. Let him work his contact bat. That's all you got to do. Okay, so then the next spot here is shortstop. Most Yankee fans will say, hey, look, it's you got this great shortstop class. I want to call one person out right now. To all the people who have brought up to me Carlos Correa, no. God, no. There is not a player in the MLB that I dislike more than Carlos Correa. And if he becomes a Yankee, I may actually question my fanship. Like, I cannot stand Carlos Correa. Get this dude as far away from the Bronx as possible. Plus, he's going to Detroit, let's be honest. Detroit had a good swing to finish the year. His old buddy A.J. Hinch, they're on the up and up. They desperately need a shortstop, and they'll pay him big bucks. So, no Correa. No Baez either. Same reasons as why Joey Gallo, Home runner, sweet guy. Yeah, he's a great defensive shortstop, so you could overlook it, but not at the price tag he's going to command. I would not prefer to spend. I'd prefer to spend that money elsewhere. Like, Judge, just me. So, I have 3 options for us here for shortstop. Number one is look to the Twins if they're still blowing up the roster. If they choose this season to blow it up, because it looked like they were kind of doing that at the deadline. If they are going to blow it up this offseason, go get Jorge Polanco. Not the best defensive shortstop, I know. And the defensive infield structure would be a little weird with him and Glaber. But he's decent. And the dude is a phenomenal hitter. Switch hitting shortstop. Hit burst both sides. It's hard not to like bringing in a guy like Polanco. That's one option. The next one is my preferred option. Call the Rays. This might be the Luke Voit trade, honestly. This could work. Go get Alberto Mondesi. Move him back to shortstop. He's a better shortstop than he's a third baseman, let's be honest. Move him to shortstop. Back to shortstop. Now, I know what you're thinking. Alberto Mondesi is not necessarily known for his bat. He's a switch hitter. He's a great bunter. He's got lightning quick speed, and he's got a great glove and a great arm. Not necessarily known particularly for his bat. His bat has improved. He's young still. He's only 27, 28. But again, like I said, you need athleticism on the roster. Some people will say to me, well, then at that point, just start Tyler Wade. Tyler Wade's more valuable on the bench than he is in the starting lineup. Let's be real about that. He's way more valuable on the bench than he is in the lineup. So with Wade, So with Mondesi, bring him in. He could be your 8 or 9 hitter every game. Play shortstop, great defense, have some speed, make some key bunts, hit when he can. You're not losing anything by bringing him in. You're really not. So that is my ideal scenario. I think that's the most realistic one, and that's the one I would do. Here's the dream one for me. Now, it's a little complicated here because he hasn't played shortstop in the last 2 years, but he's a natural he was a natural infielder. And there were a lot of people talking about him at the trade deadline, but I believe he was injured and then the asking price was a little too high. Call the Diamondbacks. Get Ketel Marte in a Yankees uniform. If you're going to acquire a big name this offseason, that is the one to do. Get Ketel Marte. Either play him at short or play him in center. I don't care which. Bring this man in. This man is a stud. He's young. He's deceptively quick. Switch hitter, contact, power, 5-tool guy. Bring him here. That's the big move you need. Bring in Ketel Marte. Please, Yankees. I beg you. Bring in Ketel Marte. Don't be concerned about the injuries. It was the first major one of his career. It was the first any real thing of his career. Bring him in. If you can't, I'll be sad. But to fix the center field hole, and you need to fix it. Oh, did I mention drop Aaron Hicks off at the bus station, eat a little bit of his contract, and dump him on somebody else? Yeah, that's important. Do that. And acquire a starting caliber center fielder. Ideally, there's a few guys here that you could do. Kevin Kiermaier's one, which everybody's looking at me like, wow. He's in his last year of his contract with the Rays, and he's the most expensive player on the roster. Trust me, they deal him if they could. So, Kevin Kiermaier. You can bring in Jackie Bradley. I wouldn't. And the other one is maybe bring in Andrew Benintendi, somebody like that. But that's what it is. That's how you fix the Yankees offseason. A lot of minor moves that help balance out the roster and bring in some much-needed speed, defense, and contact hitting. So, my 3 major offseason targets, Mondesi, Gomes, Ketel Marte. That's the big 3 I want this offseason. Get it done, Cashman. And if it doesn't work, and if he doesn't do this, then go in a different direction. It's time. Move on from Cash. Bring in somebody new. Thank you all or anyone who stayed with me during that massive talk. I know the segment's a lot longer than what I normally do. I promise for new viewers, I don't usually do 30-minute almost 40-minute segments. But this was a rant, and this was a thing that I needed to get out so that we can move on to other things. So thank you all very much for listening. Again, take as many breaks as you need to get through this. Thank you all very much for watching. I might do a quick Thursday night football segment since I don't think my next show is here yet. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will either see you in the next segment or I will see you here next Thursday at 11. This is the Talk with AVC, and I will see you later. Oh.